I was also there at Toronto this year, so I saw Better Man there. So it was like awesome to be amongst, I guess, like American audiences who like I. It was like weird to sort of think maybe Robbie Williams is like kind of not as big there, like compared to like UK and Australia. So it was like kind of nice to see everyone just like really get behind it. Like the reaction in the screening was like insane. So
Yeah.
That was a real moment. It's funny that it's good screening to be at actually because that, you know, was that the third time Rob had watched it? That was a really special screening because it was the first time Rob, myself, and Jonno watched it together.
right,
I sat here, and then Rob sat on my left, and then Jonno sat on the other side of him. And in the sort of moments of either sheer brilliance on Jonno's part or absolutely crushing emotion, Rob would sort of just reach over and just put his hand on Jonno's knee, sort of like, "Thanks, mate." But afterwards, you know, Rob is a showman. So when we got up on stage and he was being emotional, I thought he was just sort of putting it on. And he sort of looked over at me like, "I'm not putting this on. I'm about to burst into tears."
Yeah, I can't go on.
And he really couldn't speak. And it was really interesting because he had a really hard time speaking.
He doesn't. You usually can't shut him up.
Yeah, I've never seen him like that way before. And I mean, obviously, working on the film with him, I've known him for years. But that was a real moment. So it was a good screening to be at.
I was gonna say like because obviously you work so closely with him. Was there anything that was ever like was anything ever off limits for him with the film? Because like I was surprised at just how vulnerable it seemed, like talking about like his addiction and like the all the stuff with like Nicole from All Saints and all that sort of stuff. Like was there anything that he was even like, look, this is can't really let this be out there in the world?
So he was absolutely unfiltered and was like, "This is everything.
Yeah.
You cannot tell the Nicole part of the story unless you get her permission."
Yeah.
So he was like, "Everything's fair game on me," which in itself is incredible because I don't know another planet who'd allow themselves to be shown as unfavorably as Rob is in this film. There's no one like, "Oh yeah, you can show me," in that light. But the Nicole stuff he was very protective of. And so he just said, you have to go and speak to Nicole and make sure she's okay with this. And if she's not, then we're not telling that. So fortunately, Nicole was on board. She read the script. She looked at a lot of the dance rehearsals because obviously a lot of that narrative, the darker moments of that is shown in choreography. And she was amazing. She was just so on board and willing and generous, and I completely fell in love with Nicole Appleton.
Yeah, and like Robbie Williams, like beloved figure that he is, like Jono, like it's rare to play someone in a biopic of any nature like that's still alive. Like, did you feel any pressure in that? And like, were there specific aspects of his personality or his career that like you found the most challenging or like rewarding to capture?
Yeah, it did feel like a big challenge, like you said, playing someone that's real, but also someone that's so widely known in so many parts of the world that people have this predetermined opinion of him, whether it's good or bad. So we kind of just collectively took that on as a challenge, and rather than making it, this is our what am I looking for? Tribute to Robbie Williams, or this is our like for like performance. We're going to do our interpretation instead. And the device of the monkey helps that. It strips away people's previous thoughts and provides you with a whole new narrative. And so that did relieve some of the pressure. I wanted to make sure there were some idiosyncrasies that were in there, little nods to physicality that people would be able to recognize that knew him. But in terms of capturing him, it was more about the energy, the essence of Rob than the directness, than a direct like for like. I think also sometimes as audience members, when you watch biopics or musical biopics, you often spend too much time deciding whether or not you believe that that actor is that person or if they look. And we wanted to kind of take away that distraction for the audience and really focus on the story rather than that. What I really wanted to focus on was providing a voice for a side of Rob that the world hadn't seen. It's, you know, this vulnerable man, this person that lives in fear of himself and not being enough. And I think especially as that's a version that a lot of us can tap into in our own lives. And I think it's really important to bridge the gap between the audience and Rob, but also the idea of celebrity, you know, not alienating someone just because they're famous, not saying just get up on stage, take your happy pill, all will be fine. Making sure that we saw the man that was in pain as well. So that's what we wanted to focus on.
Well, speaking of like the fans, like how do you sort of both ensure that, you know, there's like the appeal to his fan base, but then you've also got like the broader audience that you sort of also kind of want to bring in because like yeah, like it was just I'm someone who like I grew up with Robbie Williams, so a lot of it was like, oh, I remember that, and like the Take That stuff. I was like, yeah, I didn't actually realize, you know, he was the backup dancer, so to speak, and you know that sort of stuff. But like, yeah, like when you're sort of looking at it and you're going, we want Robbie fans to be happy, but we also know that we've got to get the general audience in as well. Like, how do you sort of find that balance?
I mean, music is such a brilliant tool for that, right? You've
Yeah.
got what a set list of, I don't know, 10 songs that Robbie fans get to get a whole new context to. So they get this discography given a whole new life for them, which is like almost getting whole new music, right? So that's a brilliant story for them. And then also just brilliant bangers for a whole new, group of people that get to experience Robbie music for the first time with this incredible narrative. And so, yeah, I think that kind of covers all bases, really.
Did you find, Michael, that like your musical experience with The Greatest Showman, did that like influence your approach to this film in any way?
Yeah, massively. I mean, I think like all directors, you make your first film and you have your list of lessons that you go, oh, if only I get my chance to do this all over again, I would do this and I would do that and I wouldn't do this. And that's what this film was. You know, it was lessons learned on The Greatest Showman, which was an amazing. It was amazing to get to make that film as my first film. Just the cast and the people that came together on it, and you know the songs we got to write, and so that was an incredible experience. And like Jonno said, this is different because obviously we're dealing with songs that we already know are hit songs, but for an American audience, they'll be hearing them for the first time. So almost for an American audience, it's like watching The Greatest Showman because they're hearing these first time, and the only context they know of these songs is what's being presented in the film. So it definitely is. This film is the result of what I learned on The Greatest Showman, and then applying those lessons to Better Man, and having songs that you're giving a new context to for people outside of the US.
Yeah.
And that is very much narrative based, meaning at a point in the story where something happens, you then go through the catalog of songs and go, what lyric speaks to this moment and what lyric gives emotional power or depth to this moment in time. And I always say you sing when words no longer suffice. So they tend to be at moments of extreme emotions, whether it's the depths of despair or absolute euphoria.
I'm gonna say like the Rock DJ sequence is hands down like one of the absolute best set pieces I think I've seen like on film just in general. Like the energy to that was insane, and like the choreography on the boat, like beautiful. But like for both of you, was there one musical number that proved the most challenging? Because I also understand that Regent Street was not quite as accessible as you wanted.
Regent Street was a logistical disaster. It was a very difficult shoot to plan. We had very limited time each night over 4 nights to pull that number off. We had to rehearse it in a big hangar that we taped out every bus stop, every doorway, and we had 500 dancers. We had a double-decker bus. We had taxis all in there rehearsing, so that with the entire crew, so that when we went on to Regent Street, we could just start shooting. The problem is, at the end of that week, the Queen passed away, and we were unable to shoot. So we lost all that money. It's an independent film, so it's not like you just have a studio that writes you a check. You basically don't have to go out and raise that money again. Obviously, there were investors and producers who were like, you don't need to do this number. It's just one number, cut the number. And we're like, we're not cutting the number. It's a key moment in the entire film. Yeah. And it's the only moment that Rob is experiencing real joy, because every other moment in the film, he is hearing those voices in his head. He's seeing those versions of himself. It is the pinnacle moment of joy. And we need to give an injection of that before we then spiral into this darkness, you know? Fortunately, we were able to raise the money and get back on Regent Street, but it took 5 months. It delayed the delivery of the film. Domino effects of that, of the Queen's death and what it meant to this production are still being felt to this day. But I will always watch that number and think it was worthwhile.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can say like that. Yeah, as you said, like it's kind of like the first moment in the film where there is, genuine joy, and like I can say like the reaction to that sequence in the cinema was like I was like I wanted to like stand up and clap, but I'm like I'm like maybe the enthusiastic Australian guy amongst all these Americans, so maybe I should not.
Next time. We need people like you to be leading that charge.
But was there anything like, Jonathan, that you learned about yourself as an actor through this role?
We haven't got
just
long enough
how
for
good
that.
he is. If we weren't being recorded, that's what he would say.
I'd rather answer what you asked Michael, really, in terms of challenging musical numbers.
Yeah.
Because I'm still sort of unpacking this moment myself as we go on. It's the Land of a Thousand Dances montage, which kind of reflects Robbie's rise to solo fame. It's all the stuff you see with the crowd, with the dancers and the Tom Jones. Quite early on in the shooting process, and apart from the Tom Jones sequence, that we were really trying to match what Robbie did on stage at the Brits with that. It was a free for all in terms of choreo. It was kind of like Jonno, go out there, entertain this crowd as Robbie, and look here for that point and get spooked out by that demon there. But apart from that, kind of go put on a show, which was amazing at first, because I wanted to be a pop star when I was younger, right? So I got to kind of live out that dream. And we had this really engaging crowd that were giving it back, and energy after energy. But then you start doing take number 9, and then you do take 15, and take 21, and you're going, oh, it's me. I'm clearly the reason, right? I'm crap. Like they're trying to now shoot around me because I'm shit. And I start to understand Robbie's mindset a little bit, because for a while I was thinking, I don't understand how he cannot enjoy this. This is ecstasy to me right now. And then I started to get it. And I then started to understand the fear that comes with that. Because he's out there to entertain. If he doesn't feel like he's doing a job, he feels like the world's going to swallow him up whole. And I was starting to get that as well. Add that in with a weird distribution of weight, with the camera hanging off your head and your grey pajamas just turning darker and darker and darker through the sweat. Yeah, that was a real challenging moment, but it was the most enlightening one, because it really helped me understand Rob's brain. When you're running on fumes and adrenaline is completely gone out the window, yet you cannot let the audience know for a second that you are suffering, because as soon as you do, the illusion is broken. That was a real moment for me to kind of understand that his mindset.
Well, I mean, it paid off in spades because like when I was watching it got to that point where like I know that I'm watching a monkey, but there was never, I don't know, like I could see, like you can see your performance there, and that's what I love that, like the actors have sort of gone, well, just because it's a motion capture performance doesn't mean it's not a performance at the same time. So I really think like I hope that this is sort of the start of realizing that motion capture and even like voice acting is like still acting, like it doesn't need to be separate from like a performance. But when like was there ever a version of this film that was never about having Robbie presented as a monkey? Because like I remember hearing about this and it was so secretive. Like all the photos that were released was just like the back of him on stage, and there was always this secrecy of like, oh, just wait until you see what Better Man is about, and then it sort of started to come out about him being presented as a monkey. But like, was there any time when you went, well, maybe we should try this as just a sort of more straightforward biopic, or was it always Robbie was like, this is how we tell my story?
I mean, the monkey of it is the only reason I made the film. I wouldn't
Yeah.
make the film as a straight, musical biopic. I think very much because of what we wanted to explore. We wanted to explore the nature of Robbie's internal life as much as his external life.
Mm.
If you have a musical, you already have a certain heightened reality, a certain theatricality that you can play with because we don't walk down the street and just burst into song
Mm.
as others don't. So you add a monkey on top of that, and you're in an even more theatrical, heightened space. And then that allows you to traverse both an interior world and an exterior world in a way that isn't jarring. It's quite seamless. You're not quite sure when he's driving down the road at which point you're going into his head.
Mm.
Is it when the flares come up on the road and the whole world starts turning red? Is it when he goes past the bus and he sees his dad from his childhood? Obviously, once you hit a wall of water and you're underwater, you're definitely in the world of, fantasy, and you're in someone's mind by that stage.
Mm.
But the path there is quite a fluid one,
Mm.
and that is kind of like what, for at least the conversations I've had with Rob in terms of, his mental health issues. It's a constant, and it is very present and very much a part of his everyday.
Mm.
And to what degree we were allowed to show how that impacted on, moments of grief and moments
Mm.
of doubt and moments of self-loathing. And I just think without the monkey, none of that would have played as seamlessly. I think it would have felt a little forced. Whereas,
Yeah.
because we've already contracted with the audience at the very beginning,
Yeah.
you're in a heightened reality. We're asking you to suspend your disbelief and just buy into this character and this world wholeheartedly. And if you do that, you will forget about the monkey,
Mm.
and you will very easily be able to be taken both on a ride in Rob's external life as much as his internal life.
Yeah. No, I was like, it was one of those things where you hear it and you just think, there's no way that this works. And then you watch it and just go, oh, this is the only way this story can be told now. Like it was incredible. And yeah, I think it's great that we need more people like Robbie Williams just in general in terms of his showmanship, but like the fact that he is so open with his story, I think it'll speak to a lot of people. Like I'm someone who's like dealt with mental health issues, and it's like it's just the fact that yeah, you're sort of showing like it's not, yes, it can you know, you can sort of demonize yourself, but it's not like the end, and like there is always something to look forward to and something to hold on to. So I was, yeah, like I was completely swept up in the film, and I love that I went into it not knowing anything either. Like it was kind of great to not have trailers out or a lot of stills. I could go into it and then just go, it's a whole movie with him as an ape. I love it. It worked. It was like, yeah, I walked out of that screening and was very, very, very excited, and was so happy that it got, you know, like theatrical release as well. We need more films in cinema. And just quickly before I wrap up, like obviously we all have favorite Robbie Williams songs, but like for you, are there like deep cuts for the two of you that you're like, more people need to know about this particular song?
Um, for me now, I just can't think of Robbie without thinking of "Come Undone."
Yeah.
A big song in the UK. I assume it was over here,
Yeah, it was big.
and it would have been in Europe as well. But I just think it's a bit of a timeless ballad, really. Now, so much pain and it's such a good entry of someone's diary. It's so personal, and I think when you add it with the context of our film as well, I think it just, yeah, it runs so deep, that song.
Yeah, I agree. I think "Come Undone" in the new context that it's being given in that moment in time, and also "Better Man." Jacob Collier did a vocal arrangement under "Better Man," and it's him on the piano. So I think "Better Man," both lyrically and musically, packs such a punch for me as well.
Well, no, as I said, like I'm just super excited the film's out there in the world. Congratulations to the both of you. I'm very much looking forward to what each of you have next. I know that there's some movie news that's come out about you today, Michael, for what's potentially next. So congratulations on everything. So yeah, I'm just super excited. Thank you so much.